Hey, welcome back to First Time Feast. I'm your host, Bobby Perko. Today, I got another one of my absolute favorites for you. Today, we're gonna be making some gumbo. I'm gonna show you the real basics on how to make a really good gumbo at home. I know for a lot of people, gumbo is kind of a weird word. Like, what's that mean, right? Gumbo is just a simple soup. It kind of formed down in Louisiana. Simply what you're doing is you're just taking all your leftovers of your house, throwing them in a big pot, boiling them all together and making a stew. So there's a lot of great, fantastic recipes out there of some gumbo. I'm going to show you one of my personal favorites. Let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to want to do, we're going to want to work down our andouille sausage. So andouille sausage, this is actually some homemade, home-smoked sausage. You can get it at the store. You can get it really at your local Walmart, Target, where have you. This is the one that I made at the house in my smoker. Really, really good stuff. So first thing what we're going to do, we're going to cube it up into nice, small, little bite-sized pieces. We're going to put it in our saute pan. We're going to fry it up a little bit, and we're going to get making onto the roux. All right, let's get after it. So what I like to do with this, I like to take my sausage and I like to cut it down lengthwise. Okay, and then what I'll do, actually, if you want to look at that, guys, look at that marbling in there. That is just a beautiful, beautiful homemade sausage, if I do say so myself. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it down one more time the other way. So we're basically cutting it into fours, and then we're just going to simply chop it on down, cube it on up, okay? So we're going to work this sausage real quick. So you can cut it however you want. It really doesn't matter. I like to do it this way just because it kind of is a little bit easier to palate. It's a little bit easier to put on your spoon, and it makes for a more consistent bite every single time. So we're going to work these other ones down real quick. So sausage is a really fun thing to make at the house if you have never made sausage before. Common misconception is that you need to have a meat grinder. I mean, you really don't. I mean, you can chop it up with a knife. You have to go crazy with it. But you do have to have a presser so that way you can case it up really, really easy. So I have a pretty standard meat grinder at the house. So I whipped this batch up. It only took about an hour to prep. And then you want to let it set for about a day, and then get all those seasonings to kind of adhere and soak up, and then you want to smoke it. So the whole process took about 3 hours of labor, but it's a labor of love for sure. So we're gonna get this guy all chopped up, and then we're gonna get the pan going nice and hot. So we got a lot of sausages, gonna make for a delicious, delicious gumbo. Okay. So for this, guys, what we're gonna do, we're going to get this pan here going to a medium heat. We don't want to scald it. We don't want to burn it. We're just going to get a nice medium heat, get our pan up to temp, and we're going to help lubricate this guy with some olive oil, okay? So this is just some pure olive oil. You can use avocado oil, vegetable oil, what have you. We're going to get the pan nice and coated. Okay, we're going to bring our heat up just for a second just to get it nice and hot, and then we're going to go ahead and toss this guy in here. So the first time I ever had really, really good gumbo, I went down south to New Orleans and helped out when they had some floods down there back in the day, and went to this little mom and pop shop. It was in a gas station, and I got myself a big old plate of gumbo, or a big old bowl of gumbo, and man, I've been chasing it ever since. It is my favorite thing to eat, especially when it's, right now we're coming up on fall. I love making a big old bowl of gumbo. Nothing beats it when you get done shoveling the snow and you come inside and you got a big old bowl waiting for you in the house. So. All right, it feels like our pan is up to temp, so we're gonna go ahead and toss in our sausage. Okay, you can listen to that sizzle. Okay, and this is really, really smoky andouille. This is really good stuff, guys. Okay, so we're just gonna turn this around, turn our heat back down now that the pan is up to temp, bring it down to that medium, and we're simply just looking for a nice brown on this. We don't wanna burn it. We just trying to bring out some of this flavor, you know. Fat is flavor, and there is plenty of fat and smoke in this sausage. So this is going to add for a really, really nice touch to this. Okay, so while this sausage is browning, we are going to go ahead and bring our other pot up to temp. Okay, so this is where all the action is going to take place. I'm going to show you step by step on how to get this thing going. What we're going to do now, we're going to focus on how to make the roux. Okay, so we're going to bring our temp up. Now this is critical. You want to make sure when you're bringing your pot and pan up to temp for your roux, you need to be on a low heat. No greater than medium low, okay? Roux, if you're not paying attention with them, they will burn extremely, extremely quick, okay? So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and burn our sausage in the process while talking about burning the roux. So we're moving this guy around. It's looking and smelling incredible, guys. I wish you had some smell-o-vision because this is freaking awesome. There's a ton of fat in this sausage, as I mentioned earlier. So if you can see the bottom of the pan, a lot of it's going to start rendering out. So when we do dump this into our gumbo later on, you can optionally skim off some of that fat. I usually will leave some of it in there. It's entirely up to you. But it is going to be, this is a fattier sausage, so it is going to leave a lot of like skim or like a film on top there once it settles down. So this is really nice. Okay, so we got our other pan coming up to temp. We're looking good. Okay, so what we are gonna do here, guys, we're gonna measure out our ingredients. Okay, so we got our flour and we got our butter. Okay, so you can do this with olive oil again, you can do avocado oil, or you can just do salted or unsalted butter. It really doesn't matter, kind of dealer's choice. I've always found that the best roux to me comes when I do it with some just flour and butter. It honestly tastes good, looks good, smells good, and makes your entire house really smell like baked goods. And there's a lot of intricacies and tips and tricks that you can do with a roux, so I'm going to kind of go through some of them. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go with a half a cup of flour. We're going to measure this out. You don't want to tightly pack your flour because if you tightly pack it, you're going to get a lot more than you bargained for. So in this case situation, less is going to be more. So we're going to go with a half a cup of flour. And then typically they say you kind of want to do a 1-to-1 ratio with your butter or oil. I like to go a little bit heavier on the oil side or on the butter, and you can always add more, right? You can never take back, but you can always add more. So instead of doing a half a cup and a half a cup, I'm going to do just a little over a half a cup, okay? So we're going to cut this up, and we're going to go our butter into the pan first, okay? So we're going to go into this pot over here. We're going to drop this in and let that work its way around. Once that thing gets all melted, we're going to add in our flour. Okay, let that start to melt. And I'm just going to add a little bit of flour at a time until we know we got the right consistency here. So we're going to go with about half of this, so that about a 1/4 cup in there right now. Our sausage is looking good, smelling good. We're starting to get a little bit of crust on this. We're looking freaking awesome, guys. I can't wait for you guys to try this at home. This is fantastic. Okay, so let's get our butter and our flour moved around. So with a roux are absolutely critical that you keep it moving, okay? That is the #1 rule to a roux. #1 rule to a roux, yeah. So you want to keep everything moving in the pan. If you stop moving, if you forget about it, if you don't pay attention to this thing and baby this thing, you're gonna burn it, okay? You're absolutely gonna ruin it. So I'm gonna go just a little bit more flour here. Just a little bit. Okay. So like I mentioned earlier, that 1-to-1 ratio, I left a little bit more in this, so it's gonna be closer to that 1-to-1. So right now, what we're doing, we're breaking this down. And this roux is looking really, really nice, really, really pretty. So right now you got a blonde roux, okay? So you see the color of it, how it's basically a blonde or a very pale. So that is a blonde roux. So for a good old-fashioned Cajun delicious gumbo, you want to go for almost like a chocolate roux, okay? So we're gonna go a little bit longer until this turns to almost like a Hershey's chocolate caramel color. All right, so now we're gonna turn off our sausage real fast, give that a quick little bit of a stir, turn our heat down on this. That's looking perfect for later. We're gonna save this for the end, and we're gonna dump this in right before we finish up, okay? So our roux is looking beautiful, it's smelling beautiful. Okay, so the purpose of the roux does 2 things. So that flour in there is gonna add and act as a thickener. Okay, so when we get all this chicken stock or seafood stock and your water in there, all of your vegetables, it's going to kind of hold it all together and it's give it a nice thick texture. The other thing too, it's going to add a lot of flavor and back into this. Okay, so if you put our ingredients in here right now with this blonde roux, it's going to be kind of lackluster. Okay, it's not going to taste all that good. It's just going to be your stereotypical, you know, restaurant gumbo. But the more color we can get into this, the more depth of flavor it's going to have, and it's going to be so much more delicious on the back end. Okay, so as we can see, it's starting to turn more blonde. It's almost caramel color now, so we're going to let that go for another couple of seconds. So while we're doing that, we're going to transition real quick and work on our vegetables real fast. Okay, so we're just going to move this out the way real quick. We don't want to forget about this and burn it, because this is critical that you keep it moving, like I said. So we're going to a nice chocolatey caramel color. We are almost there, probably another minute or two on this. Okay, so we're going to keep our heat down just a little bit more. Oh, it smells so good, guys. I can't wait for you guys to try this at the house. Okay, so real quick, we're going to go ahead and break down our vegetables. So we're going to work with our celery first. So for the celery, move this out of the way so you can see a little bit better, guys. Celery, it entirely depends on how much of a celery fan you are. I'm using 3 stalks today. So for these stalks of celery, I'm going to simply just split them down the middle, each and every one of them. You can go smaller than this if you'd like, but this is, to me, just the right amount. And what we're going to do is we're going to chop those up into small little bite-sized chunks here, okay? So we're going to bring this over, and we're just going to kind of simply just rough chop these. It's entirely up to you how like small or large you go with this. Again, I kind of like that smaller chunk of celery. It makes for a nice added crunch. It's just really, really good in your super gumbo. All right, so we got our celery all chopped up. That guy's ready to rock. And then we're gonna go with our onion real fast. So what we got here, guys, with this bell pepper, onion, and celery, if you know what that called, do you know what that's called at home? It's called the Trinity, okay? So this is the holy triumvirate of cooking. Pretty much, it's a French combination. Started way back in the 1600s. Pretty much, it's a good base for pretty much any really good food. Okay, so down south they utilize this a lot, and then you know it makes for a really good stock. It makes for a really good soup. You can really, if you wanted to make some like roasts, what have you, it's going to add a really nice flavor. So we got a very large sweet onion, so I'm only going to use half of this onion today. We don't need to go with the whole thing, so we're going to chop this up one more time. Okay, so we got our onion, we got our celery, and then the last thing, we got our bell pepper. So it doesn't have to be a green bell pepper. If you want to add a little bit of color to this, you can use a red or yellow, orange bell pepper. Entirely doesn't matter. And for this, same type of thing. We're just going to cube it up, nothing crazy. Let's make this a little bit smaller so we can work with it here. So for this, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. This knife that I'm working with today is not the best, so we'll just forgive me for my cutting of this guy. It is like I'm in Hell's Kitchen on the bottom shelf, or whatever that kitchen, whatever that new show is on there. So we got that bell pepper all chopped up. We're gonna go with this other side real quick. All right, we're racing against the clock with this roux. We don't want to burn it right now. Okay. All right, so we got our celery, we got our onion, and we got our bell pepper ready to go. As for the garlic and as for the green onions, we're going to hold off on those for just a second, okay? Okay, so let's pay our attentions back over to this guy. So as you can see, the color is looking really caramely. You can go darker than this, right? But you're gonna risk burning it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna hold off on really going any further on this roux, and we're gonna start making our gumbo. Let's get it. All right, so we're bringing this guy back up to temp. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw in all of our vegetables, okay? So let's move this off, and we're just gonna take this whole cutting board and it's gonna travel with us real quick as we dump it in and try not to make a mess everywhere. Okay, so we're gonna go with our celery, hear that thing sizzle. So this butter mixture that we got going on our roux is extremely hot. So what's gonna happen is if you don't stir this right away, you're gonna scorch your vegetables and it's gonna leave a kind of a gross, acrid taste. So again, roux, keep everything moving in the pot. Keep it all moving, keep it all going. This is my favorite smell in the world. So when you have that fresh caramelized chocolate roux and your vegetables tossed in there, it's like baking meets cooking. It's just one of the most wonderful smells imaginable. So can't wait for you. Again, I've said this like 3 times in this episode, but seriously, I can't wait for you guys to try this because it is just that good. Okay, so what we're trying to do here, we're simply just trying to sweat those veggies down, okay? We don't want to cook them all the way through. We don't want to caramelize them. We don't want to brown them. We simply just want them to become kind of translucent. Once they become kind of translucent, opaque, then we know it's on to the next step. So we're just gonna cook this down, watch this thing go for another couple of seconds. And then we're gonna get this thing popping. So since we're gonna be moving on to the next step, let's talk about stock for a minute. So as far as making gumbo down south, they're always gonna do a seafood stock. Here in the Midwest, seafood stock is not that common for me. We don't really have it, you know, all over the place. So you can definitely make your own seafood stock at home. If you have some shellfish, some, you know, shrimp peels, what have you, save all that stuff, boil it down with some onion, some celery, strain it out and save that residual water for your nice stock. But for today, we're gonna use some chicken stock. You can use chicken, you can use seafood. Technically, you can even use beef stock. I've found that beef stock doesn't always work out the best for me. I like to go with chicken stock. It's kind of a mellow flavor, and it kind of allows your ingredients to kind of do the talking, okay? So as long as you got a really good roux, which I believe we have a pretty good roux made here, this chicken stock is gonna be just fine, okay? So our veggies are looking good. We got that ready to rock. So now what we got here, we just got some 14.5-ounce cans. We're gonna go ahead and do 2 14-ounce cans of chicken stock, okay? So we're just gonna dump that in there. Okay, so we got 1, and we're gonna go ahead and go with 2. Okay, so now we're gonna bring our heat up to a boil. We're gonna crank this temperature on this thing because now we're in sweater weather, we're in soup season. We're getting rid of this thing, let this thing come to a boil and finish off the job the rest of the way, okay? We haven't forgot about our andouille. This guy's still ready to rock. And then we haven't brought this up at all. We were making gumbo, right? So we got some nice Argentinian red shrimp, okay? So you can do a million different types of gumbo. You can do chicken and sausage, you can do seafood, you can do, you know, like a total seafood where you do like soft shell crab, snow crab, scallops, what have you. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this video, we're just gonna do a very simple gumbo. So we're gonna be doing andouille sausage and we're gonna be doing some Argentinian red shrimp, okay? Really, really good stuff, okay? So we got our soup coming up to temp. It's gonna start boiling here in a second. So let's might as well get some seasonings going. So for me, the core of this seasoning is gonna be this wonderful medley that we have in front of us, okay? So my all-time favorite seasoning right here, we got about 2 tablespoons of Slap Yo Mama. For those of you at home that hear me talk about this in all my videos, this is Slap Yo Mama. We're using the red one. There's a yellow one, a white one, a red one, and I think a green one. The red is by far my favorite because it adds that little bit of a kick. This is the hot Slap Yo Mama. So this is really, really good stuff, okay? Then we're gonna go ahead and hit it with some smoked paprika. Again, you know, it's gumbo. You want it to have a lot of spice. You want it to have a lot of to it. So we got some paprika, and then we're going to go ahead with our coarse black pepper. Coarse black pepper, you can really go with the coarse black pepper until your arm is tired if you're grinding that thing in there. You can never do enough of coarse black pepper. So don't be afraid to overseason. Overseasoning, you know, if it gets you to clear your throat, you know you got a good gumbo. So we're going to go ahead, dump this all in here, okay? And you're going to watch right now. Our gumbo is kind of a pale yellowy color, right? By the time we put all this stuff in there, it's going to be a nice red, darker color, okay? So we're going to go ahead and go all of that in there, shake it all in. Now we don't want to be bashful with the seasonings. We're going to hit it with our paprika. Get all of that in there. We don't want to miss any of it, okay? And then we're going to hit it with our black pepper. So these are the main. You can add pretty much anything you want to it besides this. In fact, I'm going to hit it with my 3 secret ingredients over here. I got some garlic, I got some salt, and I got some white pepper, okay? Typically, you don't see a lot of gumbos with a white pepper, but I really like white pepper. It adds just a little bit of extra. So we're going to go ahead, we're just going to shake in some garlic powder. No real measurement here, just kind of go with what you feel. That's kind of the benefit of cooking, guys. You make it how you like it. Salt, we're going to be adding this sausage in there, which does have a good amount of salt, and we also do have our chicken broth. So be kind of careful with the salt. You don't need to go crazy with it. We're just going to go about half of a teaspoon, and then, like I mentioned earlier, our white pepper. Okay, so we're going to add in about a teaspoon of the white pepper. Cool. So we got it seasoned and ready to rock. So real quick, let's give her a stir and let this thing start singing in the pot. And I can see that color changes. It just goes from that pale to a nice dark red and brown color. It starts smelling really, really good. Okay, so at this time, now what we can do, we can add in our sausage and all of the drippings from earlier. This is just going to add even more flavor. Like I said, fat is flavor. So this is going to add a whole bunch to this dish. This gumbo is going to be freaking awesome, guys. Let that thing start going. Oh man, I can't wait to grab a bowl of this right now. This is going to be so good. Okay, so we're going to stir that up. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to work on our last little bit. We're going to chop up some green onions real fast. Green onions are completely optional. You don't really need them. I like green onions in just about everything, so I add them to just about everything. If nothing else, they kind of act as a garnish, right? So you're going to see them in there. They're not really serving much of a purpose. Plus, if your gumbo sticks around for too long, they kind of are slimy. So you don't want to go super heavy with this. We're going to go about that much, okay? So just about yay amount, not a lot there. And then what we're going to do before we add that in, we're going to toss our shrimp in. So these shrimp, they're not cooked yet. You don't want to add them till the end because shrimp take almost no time at all to cook, right? We're going to toss this in there, and it's only going to take about 3, maybe 5 minutes tops, and these guys are going to be ready to go. So we don't want to get a splash factor, but we're going to toss these in kind of slow. We got a lot of shrimp, so we're going to go ahead and get that in there. We're going to start moving these guys around. Hope you guys are hungry because this is going to be awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay. And with these shrimp, they were already peeled and cleaned shrimp. They were detailed. You can pick those up at your grocery store, pretty much anywhere. I've used these Argentina red shrimp several times on the show before. They're really big and hearty, and they just, you know, they add a nice layer to things, okay? So we got that in there, and then we're gonna go ahead and toss in our green onions. Get those things going in there. That is looking beautiful, guys. And then now we're just going to finish it off with just a little bit more garlic. So we're going to break this guy down. Take this skin off here. Cut this chunk off. Well, let's try this other garlic clove. That one's not looking super hot. All right, this one's looking a little bit better. All right, so garlic, again, not super mandatory. I like garlic. Garlic burns really, really fast, so I like to add it just kind of as like a flavor enhancer at the end. It's gonna cook down with this soup, and every now and again you're gonna get a nice bite of it, and it's gonna be quite good. Okay, so we got that guy going there. Cool. So gumbo is cooking. We got about a minute left on this guy, and we can go ahead and plate her up and enjoy. All right. So these shrimp, as you can see, if you look in this pot here, they've kind of curled up and under. When that's kind of a sign to tell you when things are done. If they normal shrimp, so the difference between an Argentina red shrimp and like your normal store-bought, just like Gulf Coast shrimp, you'll notice these are already red, right? So typically when you see a red shrimp, that makes you think, oh my God, they're already cooked, right? These are naturally that color, okay? So how you can tell when these are cooked is they'll shrivel up and they'll kind of turn into like a $1/2, right? They'll just kind of coil up, where a normal shrimp will turn from that grayish blue color to a nice pink red, okay? So this, you know, the only way of really telling that they're done is that they kind of shrivel up, okay? All right, guys, so what we're gonna do now, we're just gonna plate this guy up, and we're gonna finish it off with a little bit of white rice, and the only thing left to do after that, enjoy. All right, let's get after it. Oh my gosh, this is some beautiful, beautiful gumbo. That roux is just fantastic. Fantastique. It's super beautiful. So what we're gonna do, I got some rice here. We're gonna go ahead and top this guy off with some rice. Put this guy kind of crowned center right there in the middle. And then we're just gonna finish her off with just a little bit of love. How's that sound? All right, gang. So there you have it. That is a homemade gumbo, right? We got our seafood gumbo. Thanks for watching today's episode. As always, you can follow me on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube at First Time Feasts. Check me out. Let me know what you want to see on future episodes. Peace.